Hi, everyone. This is Alexandra from Hear Me Roar. And today you're joining me for Cacao Talk E.3. So let's start off with a sip of cacao. Mm. Oh, I really love this stuff. For those of you who are curious, today I am drinking my cacao with a little bit of date syrup and lavender. So I first steeped the oat milk. I make it with oat milk with just oats and water. And I steeped the oat milk with a little bit of the lavender, dried lavender, like if I was going to make a tea. And after a few minutes, I put in the cacao, and then at the very end, a little bit of date syrup. But that's the cacao for today. The topic for today, so as I'm getting ready to get on the camera, all of a sudden I started feeling a little heavy to talk about this topic. And I don't know if it's specifically because of the topic or it's because around relationships. So I am making a mental note to maybe it's time and I'm ready to more deeply heal some stuff around relationships. So maybe some more of that will come up in the episode. So today's topic, I was actually talking with a friend earlier today. So the topic was inspired from earlier today. And, I asked her, I said, hey, how you doing? And she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, how are you really doing? And she said a statement that really hit me, which was, I'm tired of feeling alone in my relationship. And I was like, yeah, I know, I know exactly how you feel. And whether it's with a friend, family, or client, or just for myself, when I find myself in those moments of, someone sharing something vulnerable and just needing someone to hold space for them, I'll say like, hey, do you want me just to hold space and listen, or would you like me to give insight? And she was asking for insight, and I think the best thing we can do is share from experience. So I'm going to take this opportunity to share my experience, which is what I shared with her, and then we'll see where it goes from there. That statement, I'm tired of feeling alone in a relationship. So I am single. I am divorced. My ex-husband and I were together for 12 years, and we had a very beautiful and fun marriage and partnership, and naturally both of us evolved a lot during those 12 years. And every time we evolved, we would come up against what I would call like forks in the road, you're both are evolving and you're evolving at different phases, and you might even evolve outside of like a parallel kind of reality. And then we would like hit this like stagnation, and I would start to feel that I wasn't satisfied in my relationship. And when my friend was sharing is like, doesn't feel heard or seen or appreciated. And now this is before I started going deeper into, what do we call it? Not my healing journey, but like maybe my shamanic journey. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. But prior to going deeper into this, I would always view those forks in the relationship as an opportunity to come together and to assess, individually and together, whether or not moving forward as a partner in a partnership was going to be compatible anymore, right? So I did this on and off with my ex-husband for about 12 years. And around year 12, we hit a fork in the road. And we, again, both of us were evolving in our own lives and in our own ways. But during the 12-year period that we were together, I started to dive deeper into my spirituality, into, connecting with my higher self and my guides and everything. And my ex-husband knew all of this and was very supportive as far as like, hey, that's something that you do, go with it. But when we came to this fork, it was, I had evolved into an individual that really, I felt like there was like half of me that I wasn't able to share with my ex-husband because he didn't, the way he views reality, even though he could respect my views, he didn't have a way of connecting with that part of himself. And so the conversation was like, hey, I'm feeling this way and I'm feeling like I need this out of my partner. Is it something that you feel like you can do? And, he thought about it for a while and he said no, and that in the end, and a couple of the things that were going on, we decided to split. Now, we are still really good friends, actually. We still talk and we're somewhat in each other's lives. I just wanted to share that part. I think maybe something's going to come back from that. One second, I'll take another sip. The lavender is very comforting. Again, I don't know if it's because of the topic. So anyways, that relationship ended, right? And then I immediately, pretty much almost immediately before even the divorce papers were signed, found myself in another relationship. And in the beginning, this relationship felt like it was fulfilling what was not in the previous relationship, right? So I was like, oh, great. This is really cool. I now have managed, I got out of this relationship, which I wasn't feeling satisfied. I have found someone who now fills that part that was missing. But then again, it dissolved because there was other things that weren't being fulfilled, right? And so then I found myself out of that relationship. And as I was sharing with my friend, I found myself processing two broken hearts at the exact same time, because I had not given myself the time or the grace to process my divorce quite yet. But anyways, back to the topic, but I felt like I wanted to share that. So the feeling alone. So at the end, I find myself out of these two relationships thinking, I never imagined ever, I don't think anyone really does, when they go into a loving marriage, that I would have divorced. He was my best friend. And then when I found this other partner, I never thought that wasn't going to work out. And so when I found myself finally alone again, I was like alone when I was in the relation. I felt alone when I was in the relationships. And now I was like really physically alone. I was like, it might be time to really look at this and see really what's going on. Because when I then looked back at previous relationships, I started to notice a theme or a pattern of how I felt my partners weren't showing up for me. And so then this is, my friend and I, we were talking about this earlier. That's what we were sharing, it's like, well, what does that look like when we say that we feel alone in our relationship? And it was the things that we felt that our partners weren't able to provide for us. So, okay, that's valid, right? So then how do we change the narrative? As someone who wants to be in alignment, for me, this is someone who I want to be in alignment. I want to take ownership of the reality that I create. I don't want to judge others or blame others. That doesn't mean that I'm condoning behavior. Like in my situation, it wasn't something bad, but you could be in a relationship that the person is not emotionally, physically, treating you right. So not condoning behavior, but how can I be heart-centered? How can I come from my heart, from a space of love? How can I recognize and be honest with myself of what I contributed to allowing myself to manifest relationships where I wasn't feeling heard, I wasn't feeling validated or valued, right? And at the end of the day, I was like, I take a step back and I'm like, okay, let me go back to my basics, to the basics of the things that I like to, the tools that I like to implement. And one of the ones that really has helped me overcome, these relationships. And I feel that now in the next partnership I go into, I'll go in with a little bit more self-awareness of this, is I turned the mirror around, right? So after making a list of all the ways that I felt my partner wasn't showing up for me, the second thing I did was, am I showing up for myself in those ways? Right? Am I, how much do I actually value myself? How much do I acknowledge myself? How much do I praise myself? How much do I actually love myself? So when I turned that mirror around, and instead of saying, oh, my partner did in this, or my partner wasn't doing that, or my partner, and I said, okay, well, in what ways am I not giving these things to myself? It was like this whole Pandora's box opened up, and it allowed me to really dive deeper into a real personal, deep journey of self-discovery. And I really went this journey. It will always last for me, but this journey really has lasted now for a little over 2 years for me. And it would take several hours, but to express what I've learned. But there was so much self-awareness that came up, so many parts of me that I realized I wasn't loving, some because I was judging, others because I didn't even know they existed. I was telling another friend a few months ago that one time I was doing a little like guided meditation, like a shamanic guided meditation. And all of a sudden, like I go into my heart and I see like this little cave in my heart. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. What is that? And I go a little deeper, and all of a sudden I see the energy of myself as a little baby, a little, like toddler age. And she's like stuck in this cage, like, and then, I went deeper into, figuring out why that part of that energy of me was stuck there. But basically what I realized, it was this whole part of me that I didn't even know was still traumatized and still wasn't being loved and wasn't being valued and wasn't being appreciated, And so that's kind of the conversation my friend and I were having, is that, again, it's not about blame, and it's also not about condoning behavior, because there is behavior that is not appropriate, and certain boundaries and respect and so forth definitely should be put in place. But if I keep going from relationship to relationship and I keep noticing the same patterns over and over again, at some point, I personally need to decide, when am I going to take my power back? When am I going to get out of the narrative of victimhood and go into a narrative where I feel that I'm thriving and I'm really experiencing the life experiences that I want? And I will tell you, you cannot get there if you're constantly blaming someone else. It just doesn't work out that way. And I mean, I haven't had many years of experience in this, but I've had enough of like significant experiences to be able to say that the moments where I blamed someone else and didn't turn that mirror around and was like, okay, wait a second, if I'm judging this person in this way, how am I judging myself? And how can I bring more love for me? If I'm feeling that this person is not valuing me, is this maybe a belief within me that still I lack self-value and self-worth? It's just pivoting the mirror, and it's going away from blaming others and blaming the outside world for the patterns that you keep creating over and over in your life, And I feel like every time I do that, I feel very self-empowered. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not easy. There are definitely been moments where, someone does something and I am so angry or so disappointed and so hurt, like, you just feel your heart broken. And in those moments, like at least I can't but help to be like, you did this to me. You are not loving me. You are not respecting me, right? And again, that's true. But at what point do I step back and finally take ownership and my power back from being reactive or constantly, bringing that pattern back up? And when I first started hearing this, I had a really hard time because there are some topics, there are some life experiences that that some of us go through where it's really, really hard to say, like, well, how can you say that you're at fault and it was your responsibility? And I had that too, and maybe in another episode, I'll talk about specifically what that was for me. But again, it was pivoting the mindset. It's not that I'm shifting the blame from them to me. All that I'm doing is that I'm recognizing that I'm noticing a pattern, and that pattern is not satisfying to me, and it's not allowing me to have the life experiences that I want. And if that's true, that pattern is, if I say that it's because it's someone else's fault or it's because someone else has control, I feel no empowerment. I feel like I have no way out, right? So when I turn that around and I'm willing to go within and see what are those stories, those beliefs or narratives that are within me that's projecting out and reoccurring, and this pattern is reoccurring, That's what I'm talking about, because that's the only way out. That's the only way to finally create and experience and allow the reality that you want, and a lot of that also comes from like the law of attraction. And again, another big topic that we can definitely speak about. But yeah, this was a very great topic, and I really appreciated my friend for bringing this up so that today's episode could revolve around that. Now, the little trigger I was having before I came on camera, as I'm thinking, okay, what was the topic again? Okay, let's go to this. There is the energy of shame was coming in, and I'm trying to like reconnect to it and feeling why there was shame there. I think honestly is I think I mentioned earlier how in the beginning of my relationship I didn't have this self-awareness. And there were moments after the divorce, after we separated, when that's when I, discovered and started implementing this. Okay, if I feel like my partner isn't giving this to me, am I giving that to myself? And I didn't really like hear this concept until about a year after our divorce. And there were moments where there were still like, if I had known that, things had been different, right? And I fortunately did have the opportunity to go back to my ex-husband and bring this up to him, and was like, hey, if I had done this or we had done this, do you think, and even after a couple conversations, we just realized that no, we were not compatible, and we're not compatible at all anymore. But as I was coming on camera, I kind of felt still a little bit of heaviness and stickiness with that. So again, I'm just taking that as some self-awareness that maybe I'm ready for that next layer of releasing that shame, or it's the word shame comes up, but I'm just like literally sharing just out loud what kind of came through. But yeah, I hope that helps. Again, you guys are welcome to put in the comments any questions that you might have, anything else that maybe might be good to talk about this topic. I mean, relationships, we can go on for hours and hours just on this topic alone, feeling alone in a relationship. But I just at least wanted to share this conversation that I had with my friend today, and just kind of the self-reflection, and I just wanted to share that. So thank you guys again for joining me for Cacao Talk, and I will see you guys tomorrow.